What if everything we've been told about autoimmunity is wrong? I'm Elizabeth Yarnell. After awakening partially blind one morning in 1999, a doctor told me my multiple sclerosis would put me in a wheelchair within 10 years. I refused to accept that as the end of the story, so I started investigating. Welcome to the Inflammation Investigator, the podcast that uncovers the inflammation lurking underneath your ailments. Because autoimmune and chronic conditions should not be viewed as death knells when they are actually alarm bells. I'm a traditional naturopath and founder of the Inflammation Academy. And in 2 episodes every week, we dig into what conventional medicine might be missing. If you're living with chronic or unexplained symptoms, this investigation is for you. Your body has been trying to tell you something. Let's start listening. Hi, and welcome to the Inflammation Investigator. Today, we are talking to Dr. Tricia Pingel, and she's another one of my actual friends. So I'm really excited to be having this conversation. We are going to talk about inflammation kind of in the lens of modeling and all sorts of other kind of performative things about how that can that can lead to inflammation. And I maybe am not saying this quite as well as I could, but let me introduce you to Dr. Tricia Pingel first, and then we will talk to her directly. So, Dr. Tricia Pingel is a naturopathic physician, a lifelong fashion model, and a hip hop enthusiast who helps leaders answer the question that changes everything. What am I modeling? Starting her modeling career at 9 months old, she spent decades performing for approval until her body forced her to stop. As a physician specializing in stress and hormone health for 15 plus years, she discovered the ultimate irony. The doctor treating burnout had stage 2 adrenal fatigue herself. Her breakthrough came from an unexpected place: hip hop dancing. The joy she'd abandoned in pursuit of success became the medicine that supplements and protocols couldn't provide. That revelation transformed not just her health, but her entire understanding of wellness. What works for one person's nervous system might not work for yours. Author of Total Health Turnaround, more than 60,000 copies sold, host of the What Am I Modeling podcast, and featured in Prevention Magazine, Women's Health, and the Dr. Axe show. Please help me welcome Dr. Tricia Pingel to the podcast. Welcome,
Hey,
Tricia.
hey. Good to see you.
Yes. So Tricia and I have danced together. I am nowhere near the dancer she is, but I want her to tell you more about her story in her own words. So Tricia, tell us how you ended up here.
Oh, goodness. Well, what a winding and crazy story, as most people are. But you said it right there in the intro. I was born into the fashion world from the time I was born. And so my entire life was built around, what does someone want me to be? Who am I today? And fast forward through my adolescence, that caused a lot of problems, started to build a lot of identity issues. Fast forward to my 20s, I lost my dad. I didn't grieve. I powered through. And somewhere in that moment, I became that person that took care of everybody. If I wasn't going, who am I? So I'm going to be the rock. I'm going to do everything. I went to med school. I continued to model. I got married. I started a family. I lost more family members. Ultimately, just almost every few years, people that I really cared about, that I cared for and lost, still never really grieving. I was performing. That's what I was doing, performing the person who had it all together. And when I lost my mom, I was turning 40. And there was something about that one that just crashed me. And I think a lot of people can relate when you lose that person who has basically created your identity. I was her daughter, right? That's what I was. And when I was no longer her daughter and she wasn't here, I found myself at an all-time low. I had lost the joy in my career. I had lost the joy in my kids. I was doing all the things, guys, the diet, the supposed meditation, which apparently I wasn't doing right, but all the things I should be doing, taking all the supplements, doing all the things on the outside, looking very successful. People saying, wow, Tricia, good job. You're amazing. You do all these things. When on the inside, I was literally, I mean, I'm going to use the word disappearing within myself. And I woke up one day and I thought, what example am I setting for my children, for my patients, for my friends, for my husband by the way I'm acting? And how do I change that? And I went back to what did I love to do when I was a kid? And I was a dancer. That's what I did. And I walked into a hip hop class with a bunch of teenagers. They were 14 years old. I felt like I was totally out of my element. I was like, oh my God, I haven't danced in years. And I danced with them and they cheered me on and they welcomed me and I committed to myself. And I can say from that hip hop dancing saved my life. It started to bring me back from joy. And what was really interesting from that is that experience also propelled my practice because I was an adrenal fatigue specialist, right? I mean, that's what I did. That's what I treated people with rhodiola and ginseng and nutrients and B vitamins and the diet. And I had a whole program in a book on adrenal fatigue and how it ties into inflammation and autoimmunity and thyroid. And I had all of this, but it wasn't until I really started to realize that I had to change my brain. I had to change the way I see the world in order to change my stress response. And hip hop dance started to bring me closer than that. And that's where my practice has grown. And now I look a lot at the brain. I look a lot at how people are influenced by their environment and how that has an impact on their cortisol levels and how those cortisol levels in turn have an impact on their health in general, including that inflammatory pathway. So that's kind of the weavy thing. We can dive into parts of that as you'd like as well.
Yes, that's such a great story. Let's start with talking about what is adrenal fatigue for people who are
Mhm.
listening who might not, they've probably heard the term bandied around, but they might
Mhm.
not actually know what it means, or they might think it's just kind of a throwaway term that doesn't
Mhm.
actually mean anything.
Arbitrary, right? Yeah, I don't really love the term adrenal fatigue, I'll be honest, because it assumes that everyone's fatigued. And that's not necessarily true. I mean, if you have someone with Addison's disease, which is where their body is not producing cortisol, yes, they're going to be fatigued. But in this situation, it's more an adrenal dysregulation. And so I look at it in three different stages. Stage one is kind of like the I'm Superwoman stage, where you're taking care of everything, you're rocking it, you're not sleeping well, you're on top of it. Everyone's like, wow, you are amazing. And you're like, yeah, I just get it done. And you're almost just in this constant go mode, right? Unfortunately, we're not built to sustain that. So at some point, the body is going to start adapting. That's what we do. The survival of the fittest. So if we're constantly running from a bear, right? Let's think about this. If you're in the woods and you're taking a hike and around the corner comes a bear, you're like, oh my God. Your heart rate goes up. You focus in on it. You forget your surroundings. You have no idea where you are. And all you do is run. You divert your energy to your muscles to run. You downregulate your immune function. You downregulate your sex hormone production. You start storing things in the thyroid. We change everything. You downregulate your digestion, right? So that we can run. Because you're not going to stop and have a bowel movement while you're running from a bear. You're not going to stop and eat. You're just going to run. And ideally, we recover. But in a world that we live in where everything is stimulatory and we're just piling things on top of ourselves over and over again and trying to be that superwoman, because we got to be honest. I mean, I identified with being someone who could handle it all. Like, that's what, oh, I'll do it. I got it. I'm on top of it because that's what people told me I was, right? I was listening. Oh, you can do it, Tricia. You're on it, Tricia. And I never really listened to whether I could, right? So you're running from
Uh-huh.
this bear constantly. And what happens is the body starts to adapt. So we start to down-regulate our digestion. We start to down-regulate all of the cleaning out our liver, clearing out the toxins, managing our hormones. Our immune system starts to get dysregulated and not catching that little cold that's coming through or overreacting to every single thing, right? Just as if there's another bear coming. And we start to develop symptoms. And I think why people think that adrenal fatigue or adrenal dysregulation might be not a thing is because the symptoms that come with it can be so varied. right? They could be the same symptoms as a thyroid disorder, the same symptoms as perimenopause, the same symptoms as heartburn, GERD, gastroreflux disease, the same symptoms as, lupus or MS, or I mean, like any of the autoimmunities. I mean, throw them in there. If I listed out the symptoms of adrenal fatigue, they're going to be what all of us experience. So there's no real way to diagnose it outside of saying, well, how much are you taking on? And when did this start? And starting to self realize that. The second stage is that roller coaster stage. Sometimes we're up, sometimes we're down, sometimes we're good, sometimes we're not, sometimes we're sick, sometimes we're healthy, sometimes we feel crazy, sometimes we feel great, sometimes, and that's where most of us live. Stage three is when the adrenal glands actually bottom out. And I'll be honest, in over 15 years of doing this, I rarely see that. I see stage two all day long, where people, I'll say people, I think women primarily, just because of perimenopause is such a hot topic, but people are just struggling to figure out what's wrong with me. And they go to the doctor and they say, well, nothing, everything's fine. It's just stress. That's my favorite line. It's just stress.
Oh,
Like
yeah.
it's something that we just let it go. It's just stress. So that's kind of what adrenal fatigue is. It's the adaptation to an overstimulation that we either put on ourselves or that we allow other people to put on us that end up in some sort of symptom and disease development. And this will, without a doubt, unregulated, lead to the top conditions of our country that are killing us: cardiovascular disease, cancer, pneumonia. We see anxiety and depression. Even the suicide risk, the anxiety, the symptoms that are dealing with worsening menopause and perimenopause, hypothyroidism, autoimmunity. Some great stats on that with stress. I mean, it's unbelievable. It is leading to the number one conditions that we are all trying to prevent. Yet, it is the one thing that nobody treats. They just send you off on your way with a pamphlet and a referral to a psychologist, and that's just not fair.
Every single one of those conditions you just mentioned, of course, have to do with inflammation. So
Mhm.
that makes a lot of sense. Let's back up a little bit for people who might not have as much anatomy knowledge.
Mhm.
What are the adrenals? Where are they? What are they supposed to
Sure.
do?
Yeah, the adrenals sit on top of our kidneys, and they're kind of like our caretaker. They're our gate taker. Like they're there to save our life, and they will always win. Because if you don't run, if you don't activate cortisol, the bear will eat you. So it is a survival. It's actually one of the most beautiful mechanisms that we have in our body, because in the event that we do actually have some sort of trauma, some sort of situation, our body has the ability to almost paralyze itself to get through it and heal. The problem is we're now being triggered into that state by things that aren't truly an emergency. The number one thing that kills me the most is what I'm holding in my hand right now, which is this beautiful cell phone. If you're listening, think about how many times your cell phone beeps or notifies or buzz. In fact, you can look at your screen time and see how many times a day do you pick up your phone. You will be
Hmm.
alarmed. But
Hmm.
every time, that's the brain saying, oh, 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 right? So we're now conditioning ourselves to have that cortisol response to stimuli that isn't truly an emergency. And that is why I think we're adapting. And unfortunately, I talk about what are we modeling? We're modeling that for our children. And now we're seeing more disease in children, and mental health issues in children, and identity issues in children. And that will ultimately lead to adrenal issues as they get older. And those adrenal issues will ultimately lead to inflammation. And that inflammation will then predispose them to whatever their body was meant to be predisposed to. And I really am on a mission to get people to truly understand not only that stress is probably the biggest driving factor of every disease right now because of what it does to the body. And there are actually things we can do about it, right? We don't have to just accept it as part of life, but it does take us to start to self-respect or self-reflect, start to put down the phone, start to realize these little habits that we're doing that are contributing to that stress response in order to heal. And I think in the autoimmune kind of category, anything to do with the immune system, that is the first start right there. Is you've got to get that stress response down, because you could do all the supplements. You could do the medications, the supplements, the diet, and everything. But if you are in a stress state, you won't absorb a lick of it, right? We don't absorb when we're running from a bear. So the
Yeah.
anti-inflammatory diet will only have so much impact. It's a great thing, and it's what I promote as well. But if your body is run, 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 it's going to hold on to that and put it into storage as fat rather than absorb the nutrients and allows the nutrients to work. So I really hope you all get out of this that stress isn't something to be dismissed.
So would you consider the adrenal gland to be the stress gland? It is what
Mm.
processes our stress and
Mm.
what go ahead.
Yeah, the gland, yes. However, we have to remember that our brain signals the stress response. So, for example, here's a great example. So, if you have two people on a roller coaster, I love roller
Uh-huh.
coasters. Do you love roller coasters?
Not so much.
Okay, good. We're a great example. So we're both on a roller coaster together at the very top of Goliath or something. It's Six Flags, and we're sitting at the top. And we're about to go down the hill, and I'm like, "Yes, let's go!" And I'm way excited. And you're over there biting your nails, going, "Oh my God, I'm gonna die. Oh my God, this is horrible. What am I doing to myself?" This example is great because we're both in the exact same environment. We have the exact same stressor. But
Uh-huh.
your brain says fear, run, oh my God. And my brain says joy, fun, excitement, right? So
Right.
my brain is signaling my adrenal glands to think this is fun. So they're not doing as much adaptation, although they are releasing cortisol because obviously you have a fight or flight. That's the fun part of it, right? But I'm going to recover from it a lot faster because I'm looking at it from a lens of joy, right? Where you're going to suffer from that a little bit, and it's going to put something in your amygdala that says, "Oh, roller coasters are scary," right? And the next time you even see a roller coaster, you're going to go into a panic response. The next time I see a roller coaster, I'm going to go into a parasympathetic, laughing, hyper giggly state like a little kid, right? So every time that we do something fearful, we create that memory in our brain. And then anytime we see that, think of it, or have it exposed, we trigger that stress response. Well, it's kind of like back to the woods. If you're walking through the woods and there is no bear, but you hear a rustle in the bushes, you're
Uh-huh.
immediately going to go, "Oh, there must be a bear. There has to be a bear. Last time there was a bear, it came from over there. And then I did this and then I did that." And your brain just runs with it into a fear response, right? So that means that your adrenals are going to work more and more in fear than mine when we see a roller coaster, right? So, learning how to not only give nutrients and support to the adrenals, which is a
Hmm.
lot of what you do, as far as anti-inflammatory diets, high nutrition, really looking at mindset practices and stuff are really important. But we also have to look at how does the brain view the bear? Is it big and mean and is it going to eat us? Or is it this sweet little cuddly thing that we can just wave at and walk the other way calmly? And I think that's a real distinction also to why a lot of the adrenal fatigue programs don't work, because you're just looking at the physical and trying to meditate out of something that's programmed.
So are you saying that you can actually control your adrenal response with your perspective, how you choose to respond to something?
I am. If you
That
don't
is,
see it as a fear, you're not going to elicit a fear response,
uh-huh,
right? So, it's interesting as I've talked, and this is what's been so cool about just from my experience, where I used to go from, okay, my programs are it's probably similar to yours, very solid in their physical foundation, right? Nutrition, exercise, supplement, and mindset. I'm not discounting that at all. In fact, it's a major part of it, huge part of it,
uh-huh,
right? But you
uh-huh.
can only get so far until you start to take it to the next level. And what I learned after going through what I went through is that we really need to start working on that perspective at the same time, because when you take away the fear, you take away the response. And in my time of working with people, it's interesting because I see people, for example, who are they have a lot of faith. They go to church, right? Every Sunday, their family's involved with the church. And it seems like the stressful event comes along and they're kind of like, "Yeah, well, it'll be all right. God has me," or whatever. And there's value in that because they're just like, we'll deal with it when it comes at us. They're not freaking about everything that could happen. They're just being in the moment, making one decision at a time, and relying on their faith to carry them through something. And I think, and I'm not a religious person per se, but I've watched them and I've started to go, well, that's interesting. Because when I look at their health, a lot of them don't have a lot of health concerns, or at very minimum, they don't have a lot of stress. And so I started to say, okay, how do we all look at the world that way? And it's difficult when you open up Instagram and Facebook and you see everything that's going wrong in the world and everyone's opinion on everything. And then you go out to a social event and everyone's talking about everything and nobody can disagree on anything. Of course, our brain says, I'm not safe, right?
Uh-huh.
But if we all just start looking at what we're modeling, we watch what we say in the regards of, we think about how could we look at this as an experience to grow? How is this taking me, giving me a perspective that allows me to then forward that to my children, my coworkers, my friends, to help them grow through whatever they grow through. And I think watching these people do that over the years, and also going through grief myself, and having to choose to grow from the grief rather than let the grief take me down.
Yes, it's so powerful. I tell my teenage daughter all the
Mhm.
time, you can determine how you respond to something, whether it's something somebody said to you or
Mhm.
something, some behavior somebody else had. You can't control other people, but you can determine, you can decide how you're going to respond to it. Are you going to let something bother you? Are you going to dwell on something? Or are you going to move on past it or take it, give them the benefit of the doubt or whatever psychosocial
Mhm.
interpretation that you want to put on it that feels better to you.
Mhm.
What I never occurred to me that you could kind of do the same thing with your adrenals.
Yeah. You know what's cool? I mean, on the autoimmunity, let's talk inflammation for a second.
Yes,
Like, I
yes.
think that when we get with you and I together, we're going to agree, but maybe the general public doesn't realize this. But there are tons of studies on how meditation helps inflammation.
Yes.
Why? Because it lowers the cortisol response, right? It puts the body into a parasympathetic state, which reduces the cytokine and inflammation markers, right? And it calms
Mhm.
us down. It takes us out of it. So we all know this. Yet I haven't been to a single rheumatologist or talked to a single rheumatologist yet that has said, oh, we should have meditation or mindset practice into your therapy. Instead, we're going after the immune system as if it's doing something wrong.
Right.
But let's think about it. It's not doing anything wrong because you're faced with a bear. You're freaking out. Your immune system is supposed to hyperreact in that scenario. So the question is, how do we let the body know that we don't have to overreact, that we are okay, right? Um, I mean, even meditation has been shown to alter gene expression, right? It's been shown to lower inflammatory disorders, autoimmune disorders, lower all the actual physical markers in the blood. I mean, these are all studies, right? I think part of the problem is we don't really know what meditation is because there's so many different ways to do that, right?
Right.
So, I mean,
Right.
meditation in itself, I think, is kind of the wrong way to market it because we're like, oh, if you meditate, you'll get this. Well, not necessarily. I mean, what they're saying, if you go to the clinical speak of it, is that they're saying that we have two nervous systems in our autonomic nervous system. We have that fight or
Mhm.
flight sympathetic response. That's the running from the bear, going over the hill of the roller coaster, freaking out, just trying to survive, right? Survival mode, as most mamas can definitely relate to, right? We just power. I just had a son graduate from high school last week, and I'm just like, oh my God, how'd I do this? I'm like, where have the last 18 years gone? I don't know. I don't know where they've been, but somehow I got here. Um, but we have that fight or flight, and then we have the parasympathetic, which is the rest and digest, right? This is where we clear out our toxins. It's where we absorb our food. It's where we grow our hair. We maintain our nails, our skin, all those vanity things that we love. It's where we turn food into energy, right? It's where we repair mitochondria so that we can have longevity and health. And it's where our immune immune system is able to actively run. If you were running a company and everyone in the company was stressed out and they're freaking out every day and nobody knows where they're going and nobody's in the right department at the right time and so shows up late and so has to pick up their load, you're not going to have a very good company. So when we're stressed out, our company is not running well. And so our immune system just starts firing all over the place, right? So what these studies are saying is that the more time you spend in a parasympathetic state, a calm state, a flow state, the better your company will run, right? The lower your inflammation will be. The right nutrients will show up at the right time, at the right moment to help the right person, right? And the product of energy, which is what we produce to do more things, will be great, right? So that's all that's saying. And we're supposed to spend a good 80% in parasympathetic state. And before COVID, before the pandemic, it was 80% in a sympathetic state, was what the average American was spending. I
Oh
don't
my
even
gosh.
want to imagine what it is now, but we have completely reversed that. And I think, do you want a good test for that?
I do. I do.
This is fun. This is a fun little challenge. Okay.
Okay.
I have to actually have a challenge on my website. If anyone wants a free challenge where we do fun stuff like this, go to my website, check it out. It's yours, it's free. You'll find it. But wake up one day and go to the grocery store and don't bring your phone.
Oh.
And just see how many times you think, oh, did I forget my phone? Oh, shoot, I don't have my phone. How much faster do you run through the grocery store because you need to get home to your phone? I thought someone told me that, and I thought, oh, it'll be no big deal. And I was actually really surprised. I was like, oh my God, I forgot my phone, and I kept thinking that I lost it. I left it on the table. I physically left it on the table. So now I have an experiment with myself where I actually leave my phone at home a lot on purpose so that I can go out and enjoy the day without having to be reached. Um, Also, not having it next to your bed, is it the first thing you look at when you wake up in the morning? When you go downstairs, when you wake up, is it the first thing you turn on? Right? Start looking at your habits on your phone and you'll find a lot more stress response than you think might be there because every time you reach for it, that's a sympathetic response, right?
So if I were a maybe what I might call an average busy professional or even just any kind of worker, um, run nonstop like normal,
Mhm.
what would make me suspect that maybe I was having adrenal burnout and not just being productive?
Oh, I love that because people think that being productive is successful, right? If you're productive, the more you do, the better, when really it's the quality of work that you do, right?
Good point.
So I remember when I was in my 20s and I had a full-time job and it was 8 hours and I could get the job done in four. And it annoyed me because I had to sit there for 8 hours because I was like, look how much more I could get done, right? Um, so I think we're all busy. I'm a concierge doctor. I'm available to my patients 7 days a week. So
Uh-huh.
here I am talking about putting my phone away, right? And you're like, great, Dr. P, you're being hypocritical. No, I just set very clear boundaries on it. I don't keep it in my pocket. I set it down on the weekends, and I have very strategic times that I go and I check my email and my phone, and I take care of everything right there, and then I put it away again. I think that what we have to look at is if you are feeling irritable, tired, run down, you're not finding joy for yourself, you're finding that you're putting things off. Oh, I can't go to the gym. I'll start next week. I've got this meeting to do. Oh, yeah, I'll do that after this. I'll do that after Christmas. I'll do it after my kid graduates. I'll do it after this big business deal. I just have to get this done first. If you find yourself making excuses for your own self-care, right? You find yourself reaching for foods that you know you probably shouldn't be eating, but you're just eating them. If you find that you're irritable, you're not finding joy in your life, you're not feeling connected to yourself, your family, your friends, there's a problem. And I think so many of us immediately go to hormones, right? Oh, it's perimenopause. Well, yeah, it is. But it's not just estrogen and progesterone. Cortisol is a hormone. And cortisol is in the exact same pathway, guys, as estrogen, progesterone, testosterone. So if you have one hormone off, it will impact all of your other hormones. One of the common links, and I know we're on more inflammation today, but just for note, because it's an inflammatory hormone, is one of the most missed conditions that I see that come from stress is insulin resistance. Because
Mm.
people don't realize that when cortisol is triggered, it triggers insulin. And when you trigger insulin, insulin is inflammatory and causes fat to deposit around the abdomen, right? Which then causes more inflammatory pathways to continue to kick off, right? And so all of a sudden, we wake up one day and we have insulin resistance, and we start treating it with drugs that are meant for diabetes or insulin resistance, but we're not looking at what made that trigger in the first place, right? And cortisol has a huge component of that. Insulin is a hormone, thyroid is a hormone, all the sex hormones are a hormone, cortisol is a hormone, and hormones want to balance. That's their innate goal. They want to balance. So if one is way off, guess what? Another one is going to be way off to try to level that out. And I see this happen so often, and I see it in my autoimmune clients all the time. I see Hashimoto's antibodies, I see high reverse T3s, I see insulin resistance starting, and I see dysregulated cortisol. In fact, over the years, I've reversed and lowered Hashimoto's antibodies in a large proportion of my patients by simply looking at the adrenal function, not even going into replacing the thyroid. And that taught me a huge lesson that these all interplay. And if we don't look at the body as a holistic being, we're not going to get anywhere.
So when you're looking at those patients and you are addressing adrenal function, what are the steps that you take?
Yeah. So I said earlier, there's kind of four foundational steps. There's nutrition, which is essentially a very high nutrient based diet, which is innately anti-inflammatory because you're looking at whole foods, right? Everyone is a little bit different. I don't have the same diet for everyone in the respect that I don't eat meat. I don't do well with meat. It doesn't digest well in me. So I'm not going to eat it. That doesn't mean that somebody can't, but they need to choose the right sources of meat in the right balance with a lot of nutrients, right? A nutrient dense diet that's adaptable, flexible, and can work with your system, right? Because that's why people fall off the wagon. They get busy and they can't find their exact pre-made meal exactly as it was in the thing. So they just don't do it, right? So we have to have a flexible diet that has a high nutrient base. Number two, exercise. This one can be a bit challenging because a lot of people think that I mean you have to like become a gym rat. When actually, if your adrenals really are struggling, if they're kind of dipping a lot, going to the gym can actually wear you out more. So, what I say is focus on making sure that wherever you are fitness level, if you're someone that's already going to the gym and lifting weights and doing all your thing, are you balancing that with parasympathetic activity? Yoga, Pilates, stretching, breathing, right? Breathing is an exercise. It actually uses muscles and it pulls on that vagus nerve when you move the diaphragm up and down. That's an exercise. Most of us don't breathe. So that's also important. So it could be as simple as just learning how to breathe or working that into an already intense schedule. And I have a lot of people that are working out too hard and they need to back off, and focus more on how can we be nurturing to our body rather than trying to kill our body all the time. Number
Right.
three is supplement. And supplements, I mean, nutrients. I do a lot of methylated B vitamins, a lot of minerals. These are all required for normal function, mitochondrial function. The mitochondria will become damaged from stress. I mean, that's just the way it is. And if we don't have good mitochondria, we certainly don't have the energy to produce what we need, right? So, really taking a good lab workup and trying to figure out in the individualized person what nutrients would really help this person. What are they getting? What are they not getting? How do they all interplay to each other? And what is the health of the mitochondria? And then lastly is the mindset, and hands down the hardest part. Um, it's not simply just about breathing and meditation. That's a great start. Breathing is a great start. Um, but I use this exercise for people to kind of start to realize it's kind of along the same lines as the cell phone one. But so think of something that worries you, something that bothers you, something pops into your head. For me, like when my son first started driving, I would always worry, what if he goes the wrong day down that street? Oh my God, what if he turns over here and runs into a tree? Like stuff that they're probably not going to do. So think about what's consuming your mind and ask yourself this. Number one, do I have control over the outcome? Yes or no? Number two, is it worth my energy to put into this? One or two, because we only have so much energy in our day, right?
Mhm.
And then from those, you have to make a decision. Am I going to take it on and get it done? Am I going to delegate it to someone else, or am I going to let it go? And when I do this exercise, especially in the beginning, I would find that a good 80% of the stuff that I was worrying about every single day that was consuming my mind that I felt like I had to do, either I didn't even have control over the outcome, which was hilarious, or it definitely was not worth my energy. It's not worth my energy to worry about what might happen,
Yep.
right?
I couldn't agree more.
It's just not worth it. And it sounds so simple, but it's really not, right? It's something you have to try to do every day. It takes about 21 days to kind of sort your nervous system through this. So if you take 21 days and every single day you do that, you write your to-do list, everything that you feel like you have to do in a day, everything that's running through your head. You ladies know totally what I mean. It's like constant from the moment you wake up till the time you go to bed. And write it down and start really looking at it and saying, is this something that I need to do? Do I want to do this? So often we do things out of obligation. And I'm saying that from the perspective of a caregiver. I mean, I cared for my mom, I cared for my grandparents, I care for my family, I care for my patients. And there was a point where I had to say, I have to care for Tricia.
Mhm.
And in order to care for Tricia, I have to delegate this responsibility to somebody else. It's not mine to take on as much as I want to. I can't. And so when you start to really look at that, it starts to shift your mindset. And what's crazy, going back to production, when you were talking about being productive, when you clear all that crap off your plate that you don't really want to do and that you don't have to do, now you've opened up all this time to put all that energy into things that you love to do or that you want to do. And you become far more productive and also find yourself having downtime. I could have never danced 7 days a week when I first opened practice because I kept
Mhm.
myself busy with everything else in the world. And I hear that all the time. Oh, I can't, I gotta do this, I gotta do that. You have to just start carving out time for yourself. And that might mean that you have to say no to somebody else.
Yes. I think you're so wise to talk about stop worrying about things that you can't change, that you have no influence over,
Mhm.
maybe the state of the world, which is a
Yep.
dumpster fire right now. All
Yep.
these things. There's nothing I can stress and worry all I want about it, but it's not going to change what's
No,
happening. I have no influence over
yeah, and you won't see it if you stop looking at it. And I don't say like
that.
to ignore it, right? I'm not saying just ignore it and, toxic positivity. That's not what I'm talking about. But like, have you ever bought a car? You have a red car. You never see a red car on the street. You never see this car, right? You buy a red Honda and you're like, oh, nobody
Uh-huh.
has one. And the minute you buy one, everywhere you turn, there's a
Everybody.
freaking red Honda. Why? Because your brain now put an image of a red Honda and now all it sees is red Hondas, right? It's the same person. This is very much along the line of Joe Dispenza, some of the quantum physics is that what you model to the world, what you put out there is what you get back. So if you're saying, you know what, I'm not going to let this bother me because I have no control over it, I'm going to go do something that fulfills my heart. Smile at someone in the grocery store. Or when they start to complain about their life, just say, I'm so grateful you're here. Or something. Put yourself in the gratitude bucket for just being here and just experiencing whatever this is that we're meant to experience. And all of a sudden, you will start seeing gratitude everywhere. You will start to see the good in the world that I promise you is still there. Us good people are all still there, and we all just want what's best for everybody. And I think we just get so caught up in the people that are living at a frequency of fear, and we navigate into their world, and we have to stop doing that because we don't have control. And to be honest, if we look at the philosophy of everything needs to happen because it needs to happen, and from it, we're going to learn something that's going to help us moving forward, well, then the perspective of it is quite different. Asking yourself, okay, this happened in the world. What can I learn from this about how I live in my world? And what I teach my kids and how I want to pay forward the gratitude and the love that I have in my heart rather than saying, oh my God, our life sucks. Everything's going downhill. My life sucks. I'm never going to get anywhere. I don't see how that helps us achieve our goals in life of happiness. If our goal is joy and happiness and money and success and happy neighbors, well, then we need to be a joyful, happy neighbor. Because if we're a joyful, happy neighbor, we will attract the other joyful, happy neighbors. And the ones that don't want to be joyful and happy can go hang out with themselves and they can live in that world. We can live in parallel worlds, right? And I know this is kind of a tangent. People are like, whatever, Dr. P. But seriously, guys, seriously, as an adrenal fatigue specialist, as someone who's dealt with this for over 15 years, those are the people that I see reverse autoimmunity, lower their inflammation, have better gut health, have less illness, have had better joy, they sleep better, they go through menopause better, better, they look younger, they're having fun in their lives, and they're living in every single moment. And I think that's what all of us want. We just want to be healthy, happy. We want to be able to do what we want. We don't want to be stuck in a bed or a wheelchair. I mean, I even have clients who have been disabled. They've had tragic things happen to them, and they're full of joy and gratitude. And they've had it far worse than I have. So what am I to complain about?
I agree. And I think it's important to recognize too. I think oftentimes when you might say that to somebody who is
Hmm.
feeling in the depth of despair, they might do that, as we were saying earlier, that performative gratitude. Like they're
Hmm.
saying that, but they're not embodying it. They're not really feeling it. It's not really genuine and authentic for them.
Hmm.
So I think that that has to be a real feeling that you embrace and a real perspective shift from
Hmm.
for your life if you are coming from being a Debbie Downer to somebody who is grateful and appreciative of what they have as opposed to what they don't have.
Yeah, and I actually just had a post this morning from a friend of mine who's going through ovarian cancer, and she's going through chemo and rounds of chemo. And she got on today and she goes, I just want to tell you guys how much I've learned from this experience. And she was talking about how she learned who her true friends are. She learned that she has support from everyone. She said she has no doubt that she's going to survive, but she said, a lot of people look at this as a negative thing. And she says, it's actually changed my life because now I've learned to appreciate my husband more, everything that he's doing. I've learned to appreciate what I used to do that I haven't been able to do for 4 months, like movement and whatnot. And she was like, I have a whole new leash on life that when I'm out of this, I know I'm going to look at life in such a different way. And I think that's so important. When my mom was dying, she was a beautiful woman. She was a model as well, and as a career, as a professional. And she was 5'10" and about 95 pounds right before she died.
Ooh.
So she was wasted. She couldn't go to the bathroom by herself. So she would have to pick up the phone wherever she was, call whoever was in the house and say, I need to go to the bathroom. And she'd have to wait for us and we would have to go there and we would have to lift her up and we would have to walk her to the toilet. She'd have to sit down. We'd have to wait for her. We'd have to help her kind of clean herself, help get her back up and get her into bed. And I don't, I, how many times do you go to the bathroom every day?
Yeah, could be many,
And
many, especially as an older woman.
yeah, you know what I mean? And we don't even, I know that sounds silly, but like she couldn't without somebody. And we do. So, we might be tired. We might have an autoimmune condition. We might be dealing with cancer. We might be going through a stressful divorce. We might have all these things going on, right? And we can focus on that, or we can start to say, well, I can get up and go to the bathroom by myself. I woke up today. I mean, people ask me every day, what am I grateful for? And when people say, what are you grateful in your life? And I go, I'm grateful that I woke up this morning. I don't know what today is going to bring, and I don't know if it's going to be stressful or not, and I don't know what's going to happen, but I know that I'm here to experience it. And whatever it is at the end of the day, if I sit down and say, you know what, this happened, I didn't like it, but what am I going to learn from it? How can I end my day in peace, knowing that whatever that is, whether I know what it taught me or not, just acknowledge that it was there. It probably taught me something, and then let it go. The
Mhm.
next day you wake up with even more gratitude. And this will lower your CRP. I'm not kidding. This will give you more energy. This will give you more joy and more energy will help you fight whatever you are dealing with. It will help your immune system help you. That that is so important. And I just want people to spend more time just realizing that. And I know, like you were saying, you're like, yeah, okay, I practice gratitude, but you do have to feel it and find something. What I did, like I said earlier, and I think this is a good tip too, is find out what you used to do when you were a kid. If you're really stuck and you're like, I just don't even know who I am anymore. I'm mom and wife and business owner and whatever. And everything's a have to rather than a get to. Start asking
Mhm.
yourself if you were 4 and your parents said, what do you want to do today? And you were allowed to do anything with your time, what would you have chosen to do? And that is what you need to go do, whatever that is. And it might sound silly. It might be coloring. Might be, I mean, I used to play with Barbies too and build houses for them. So now my family will come home and they'll be like, Mom, The living room's in a totally different orientation. And I'm like, yeah, felt like it today. Because that's what I used to do as a kid. I used to build things and change things and imagine things and swap out. So now I swap out pillows and throw floor blankets and whatever and dance. And I think if you can get back into that and let go of the limiting belief that now that you're older, you can't do it, it's amazing what that can open up in your
Ye-
creativity and in your mind.
My mother was a practicing clinical psychologist for 40 years, and
Mm,
she always said, you should, when you're looking at what you want to do with the rest of your life, you should think about what you loved to do as a kid.
100%. Because you already know.
Yeah.
Right? And then the world tells us who we're going to be. And I mean, I'm a prime example of that. This is who you're going to be, and this is who you are, and this is what you're going to look like, and this is what you're going to wear, and this is where you're going to stand, and that we're going to pay you to do this. And if you don't look exactly like this, we're going to reject you. And and I think I'm not alone in that. It's not just the modeling world that does that. I mean, we're living in a world where we're being judged constantly, and if we don't look like the mold, then we're not good enough. And to be honest, that pisses me off because
Well,
every single person is so beautiful in so many different ways. And I just would hate to have the same person walking around the world everywhere.
I think that is another piece of this is that in order to find that inner joy and that inner gratitude, you have to reject external judgments
Mhm,
and often those judgments aren't even real. You are
nope.
imagining them. You're telling yourself these stories that other people are judging you. And the truth is,
Mhm.
other people are just living their lives. They're not thinking about you.
Nobody cares what you're doing. I
Nobody
learned that in
cares.
dance because you're looking in the mirror and I kept thinking, oh my God, these girls are watching me. There's this old lady in their class and they're watching me. And when I
Mhm.
stopped, I looked over and they're watching themselves and they thought I was judging them. And I actually
Mhm.
opened up that conversation, with them at some point and said, God, I feel like such an idiot. Like you guys all think I'm crazy. And they're like, oh my God, no, we feel like you're watching us. And I was like, guess what, guys? We're all in the same boat. And all we're looking at is ourselves in the mirror. If
Yep.
anything, we're looking at somebody else and comparing ourselves to how good they are. We're not looking at how bad they are. We're looking at the people that we want to be. And we're trying to change to be them when we really just need to, really hone in on who we authentically are, as weird and crazy as we are. And that will have a very drastic impact on our health.
That's such a good point. While we wrap this up, is there anything else, any last words you'd like to leave the audience with?
Whatever you're dealing with, whatever condition, whatever situation, whatever life has brought you that's hard, you are beautiful. You are worth taking care of yourself, and nobody can tell you who you are. You know who you are, so go be who you are and trust that your body will follow when you just hone in on your own heart.
Oh, beautiful. I love having those as our final words. But before we wrap this up completely, how can people find you?
Drpingel.com is a great place to start. It's drpingel.com. I am all over social media. I know, ironic, because I just said don't look at it. I'm all over social media with joy, joyful things. So if you like to laugh every so often and like to learn more about how you can kind of change your mindset, you can find all of my social media handles on my website, drpingel.com. You can find my podcast called What Am I Modeling? You can find my book, Total Health Turnaround. And I do have a 5-day stress challenge. It's free. We just kind of try some little things to see where you're at. But most importantly, if you do reach out, tell me where you heard me and say hello because I'm here for everybody. I'm here to bring us together. So show me who you uniquely are and say hello so that I can say hello back.
And I can vouch that she is the most accessible person whenever I'm at a conference with Tricia. She's the one who leads off and starts the whole dance party. So she is the embodiment of the joy that she talks about. So, Tricia, thank you
Thank you.
so much for coming today.
Thanks for having me and sharing this space with me.
Oh, we're so glad. Thank you. And please tune into the next episode of The Inflammation Investigator. And that's another case filed on The Inflammation Investigator. Remember, every symptom is your body's way of communicating. We just need to learn the language. If today's episode sparked something for you, I want to hear about it. Share your own investigation discoveries with me on social media at Elizabeth Yarnell, or find me at elizabethyarnell.com. Your experience could be exactly what another listener needs to hear. And make sure you're subscribed so you never miss an episode. And here's the thing about investigations. They work best when you're not going it alone. If this podcast is helping you uncover the answers you've been searching for, please like, rate, subscribe, and review, and share it with someone who needs to hear this message. As a new podcast, these actions mean more than you know. Want to dive deeper into your own inflammation investigation? Head over to inflammationinvestigator.com, where you can take my free inflammation quiz to uncover which hidden triggers might be affecting your health. Until next time, this is Elizabeth Yarnell, your inflammation investigator, reminding you that the solutions to your health issues are out there. Let's find them together.